All right, good morning, folks. This is kind of day part two, day two, something like that, of kind of like my SI joint pain rehab that I'm doing to myself. So this is day four, or it's been 4 days, or three, like I injured myself on, I'll say day one. So this is day four. Things are doing well. Night, like the same night that it happened, I was not able to turn over in bed without waking up. I was able to fall asleep relatively quickly, but like rolling to my right was painful. So these last at least 2 to 3 nights, I've been able to sleep without my back waking me up. So that's cool. So we're gonna kind of continue what we had started with last time in terms of some hip stabilization, and we may advance into some additional positions beyond just laying on our back or side. So, kind of to continue with a similar trend, that if I sit here, I can clench my right butt cheek, clench my left butt cheek. I'm not going to say that my right butt cheek still feels different, but it's not quite the hamstring involvement, and it's not symptomatic, so I'll take that. And that's with both like the toes up and the toes down. So if I go into a squeeze my butt, all right, I feel like I can come up much higher now with the bridge, to the point where I'm now getting a stretch through the front of my hip. Good. All right, me bringing my knee up, I think last time was symptomatic. Still challenging on the left side, just because I haven't done really intentional single leg bridges in a while. But much better height and motion. The capacity maybe still isn't there to do more than 5 really well. But again, it's one of those things where as I go through these next few advanced positions, right, we'll see how I do there. All right, so same deal here where, all right, that's a good, that clamp feels good. Clamp feels pretty easy. We go for the, all right, so again, just the range of motion with this relative to the last video, where before it was like, I feel like I was stuck here. Now I can get my shin up a little higher. So big differences from 2 days ago. Nice. Alright, so same deal. Let's see how this left side clamp feels. Okay. So you got the reverse clam. So again, I feel like that's a relatively similar height side to side. This is, again, just, what I'll say is that I've been using relative rest as my guide to my back pain recovery. Alright, I'm not necessarily going to the gym right now, but what I can do is still do some sort of activity to maintain my energy levels. That, popped up real quick right there. That felt pretty good. Okay, so that was laying on my back and then laying on my side. We're gonna go to my stomach here. So there's basically 2 leg lifts that I like doing here. Okay. So the first one is a straight leg lift. This kind of lets you use your glute and your hamstring. What I'm going to try and do first is I'm going to stabilize my pelvis and then lift up. So you may see that it's like, oh, that looks like a really limited range of motion. If I didn't lock my pelvis down, I'd get my leg up higher, but that's just me using my back to kind of initiate the motion versus, okay, stable pelvis. And then I lift. So this is more of this kind of end range stability. Where that's usually where people have issues. All right, so again, we'll knock out the left leg for a couple reps. All right. All right, so the straight leg, that lets you use your glute and your hamstring. So if we bend the knee, it kind of limits us to just our glute. And this is where you can tell, or I can tell at least, right, that my leg's not going very high up. Alright, let's see what the left side has to offer us. All right, so both hips were having some difficulty with the kind of glute bias one. All right. So, doing a quick motion check. Okay, so that's about as far back as I want to go right now, or far down. I can go back pretty good. A side to side motion feels okay, and my rotation feels okay. So it is very much just like my let's see here. If I roll my pelvis back, all right, so I can get a little further, but this is where again I'm intentionally skipping the gym until this kind of feels better for me. So we will eventually get into some heavier lifting, but we're not there yet. All right, so we've gone from laying positions to now the seated position. So again, I'm going to work on some end range external rotation with my front leg. So this is not something I do a lot. Like the laying stuff I do kind of with patients, but not a lot of patients can get on and off the floor easily with back pain. And the plinth or kind of mat table I have isn't large enough to support someone like this. Hopefully, like I would not want to do this on my own plinth because I don't think it'd be what's the word, wide enough for me. All right, so from here we're going to try and lift up this back ankle, right? And this is where even though I'm trying, my foot ain't moving. So I'll let myself lay down. Let's see if that helps any. It does, right? I can at least get my foot off. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Let's do one more. All right. So, I know I've not had a lot of hip internal rotation for a long, long time. Part of me thinks it is because of how my hips are shaped. But we'll see how this side does. So, again, I think because of how my hips are set, right, I can externally rotate a lot more easily on both legs. And that internal rotation is more limited on both sides. Okay, so we'll see, can we even, nope. So if we drop down to the elbow, let's see here. All right, can't even get the, let's see here, how did I do it on this left side? Okay, so, all right, so just leaning on my elbow. Maybe I had my right foot in a little closer. Cheat the first feel. All right, so my internal rotation on this side is very limited. So, seeing that gives me an idea for something different. All right, so from here, we're going to drop down. So this is again a version of internal rotation. I'm actually feeling a really good stretch. So I'll hold this here for a bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm then going to push my left knee into my right knee so that there's, or like my right knee into my left foot, so I can get a little isometric contraction, and then it drops down a little more. Okay. Okay. Gave that a few rounds. It started kind of creeping up into my obliques. So let's see how this does now. That's right, laying on my elbow. So, hey. So I get a little more motion. Feels better on my hip. Still not a lot of motion, but I'll take it. Okay. So, knowing what I know, all right, so here, I'll say it's the same concept of like glute squeezes in a more advanced position. So here I'm in a half kneel. Can I squeeze that? Okay, so if I just squeeze in that right glute, I got a real deep stretch in the front of my right hip. So it's not unpleasant, but it's definitely tighter than I would have expected it to be. I'm going to put myself into a touch of internal rotation. Oh, that feels great. And then same thing, I'm gonna add that glute set in. I think one of the other things that's helped my symptoms progress is, okay, there's a few major things that I think have helped my symptoms as much as they have. One, my education, right? I know that me exercising is safe and that it's helpful. And that I know what to do, right? So I'm not apprehensive about practicing these motions. Holy shit, that feels great. The other thing is like I have time to do these, right? And the third thing is my job, right? Where because of the nature of my job where I'm kind of frequently moving, again, it's not like a lot of intense motion, but it's frequent motion, which also helps my symptoms. Like I had to sit down and document for about 40 minutes. And when I got up, it was like definitely stiff. Like I had like a little bit of a limp for about 6 steps, and that progressively improved. Okay, so we definitely stretched out that right hip pretty good. Let's see how this. Okay. And again, as I'm like pushing into this hip flexor stretch, I'm really trying to emphasize this glute squeeze, and then I might even put myself again into a touch of internal rotation here. There's the ticket. All right. So again, out of curiosity, all right, so again, a relatively, I'll say, big difference in my forward foldability relative to just a few minutes ago. All right. All right, so I'm gonna knock out the world's greatest stretch. Same thing. I'm gonna really do this right glute squeeze. All right, sink in a little more. And we sink in a little more. switch sides. Squeeze that left glute. See if we can't sink in a little more. Alrighty. So, can we recheck? So progressively improving. We'll take at least another look or two. Well, we'll take a look at another few movements here. So for myself, all right, this is this tall kneel position. So even here, I can feel that I can't get my hips all the way through. Again, whether it's like my hip flexors are tight, my abs are weak, my spine's protecting itself. It's more so just the practice and feeling that I can hold this comfortably while breathing. All right. I'm gonna tilt my pelvis back and then push my hips through. Again, it's a pretty comfortable stretch throughout the hips. Like my abs are burning a little bit. My glutes and hamstrings, right? It's challenging to hold this position for me right now. Okay. So that feels pretty good. We're gonna take a look at bird dogs. And again, or at least the leg part of bird dogs. Trying to emphasize, you know, good. Okay. I have my core stability, right? Or I got some bracing going on. I feel my abs are tight. So what's interesting is when I extend my right leg back, I get glute. When I extend my left leg back, I get hamstring. So let's take a look at this again. All right. So you can almost touch your toes without bending your knees, but it's not quite there. So this was some more, I'll say, advanced positions relative to what we did the first time. The plan being for the third session is, do our pre-check in those laying positions, work up to a seated, half kneeling, and hands and knees position, and then from there, if all is going well, move into a standing position. So this has been, if anything, a good reminder for me that it's like, okay, I've been maybe too focused on like gripping and ripping, where I should have a little more of intent to my motions, both here and in the gym, so that I can really focus on like a good muscular contraction rather than just getting from point A to point B. So I'm glad I'm feeling better. If you're using this to kind of guide your own recovery, that's dandy. If you have questions, feel free to DM me, either through YouTube or my Instagram page. What else? But yeah, if you did what I did today, great. If you did your own thing, great. You're just starting, looking for ideas, motivation, discipline, or a community to support you is what we're here to do. Help each other be a little better every day. So good job today. Keep working hard. We'll see you next time.